MSW Media.
Hi, I'm Harry Littman, host of Talking Feds, a roundtable that brings together prominent figures from government law and journalism for a dynamic discussion of the most important topics of the day. Each Monday, I'm joined by a slate of Feds favorites and new voices to break down the headlines and give the insider's view of what's going on in Washington and beyond. Plus sidebars explaining important legal concepts read by your favorite celebrities. Find Talking Feds wherever you get your podcasts.
The rule of law is not just some lawyer's turn of phrase. It is the very foundation of our democracy. The essence of the rule of law is that like cases are treated alike. That there not be one rule for Democrats and another for Republicans, one rule for the powerful, another for the powerless, one rule for the rich and another for the poor, or different rules depending upon one's race or ethnicity. To serve as Attorney General at this critical time is a calling I am honored and eager to answer.
So now it's clean up on aisle 45 time. And for a long while yet, it is going to be clean up on aisle 45.
And welcome to episode 7 of Clean Up on Aisle 45. I'm Andrew Torres.
And I'm AG. 7 weeks into the cleanup, Andrew. 7 weeks.
I feel like I'm hip deep. I've got my waders on. I've got the gloves, you know.
Like Mike Rowe, Dirty Jobs.
It sometimes feels that way, doesn't it?
It does. It feels like cleaning out a sewer or a grease trap. You know, one of that, that smell.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome. You're welcome for that memory.
But far better than a foul grease trap smell. Like, I am super excited about today's show. We have an unbelievable interview. I'm really, really excited about that.
I'm dancing in my chair right
now. Those of you who are not privy to the Skype calls that AG and I have when we record these things, she is literally dancing in her chair. It is the greatest thing. But no, we have Andrew McCabe.
Yes.
I will fight you over who gets to be his boyfriend, but
I will win.
You probably will. So, all right.
Yes, we reached into the depths of the AG Rolodex, and Andy McCabe agreed to speak to us today. We're going to talk about insurrection security and the hearings that we had last week in the House Appropriations Committee and the joint session of the Senate's, what did we have? The Rules Committee and the Homeland Security Committee. And the testimony that we heard from the former, a sergeant at arms for the House and the Senate, and of course the former Capitol Police Chief, just, these former security officers that all resigned after the insurrection. And then the House Appropriations with the current folks, some evidence that's come out. We want to talk about this refrain of there being an intelligence failure with Andrew, and he's going to talk about that. And then, of course, we've got the upcoming hearings this week, including today, Wednesday, when this comes out. There will be some officials from the Pentagon and the FBI and Department of Homeland Security testifying. So it's going to be very interesting, and that's a really incredible interview with Andy. So you definitely want to stick around for that.
Yeah, no, that was fantastic, and I can't wait. But it's not just your Rolodex that's amazing, AG. You made news this weekend. You want to tell everybody about that? I think you should take a victory lap.
Yes, thank you. I am the Nazi hunter.
This is so crazy. So tell me about this. Okay.
So Friday morning, early in the day, my friend Hammy, who has a background of working with Nordic languages. I can't tell you why or what company he works for, but he was putting out an international graphic design product that had to include some runes from the Norse language. And there are multi-international laws banning specific symbols that the Nazis co-opted from this Nordic language to use as symbols for, their collar insignia and stuff like that. And in Germany, there are 3 specific symbols that are banned. And the first one is the swastika.
Right.
You aren't allowed to use that. Second one is the sig. That's that lightning bolt S that they put next, not lightning bolt, but kind of like the zigzag S that they put next to each other to signify the SS.
Okay.
The third is the odal rune. And the CPAC stage, my friend Andrew Hamilton noticed as the aerial camera came down Friday morning to introduce the beginning of CPAC, that the stage was shaped exactly like, not close to, not resembling, exactly like the odal rune. That's the one you can't use.
Yeah, so, okay, I want to drill down on this a little bit because when you first tweeted, and I live and die by your tweets, we know this, I looked at it and I'd never heard of this odal rune thing, and I thought, it's a lot of right angles, maybe it's just a coincidence. Talk to me a little bit about what the rune is and how... yes, me in naive, I'm not a white supremacist and I don't consume that kind of media circles. Why is this a dog whistle for white supremacy?
Well, first of all, a shout out to all the white supremacists on Twitter who called me out for being a Nazi, seeing as I know so much about this. That was their defense, not that it was utilized at the stage.
Their defense is, I know you are, but what am I?
Yes, pretty much.
Okay.
I'm rubber, you're glue. Okay. All the Nazi stuff you say bounces off me and sticks to you. Imagine the letter W, capital letter W, and then set a diamond right on top in the middle. That's the odal rune. Now, if you take the little serifs away of the W, the sides of the W, you get the normal Norse letter O, the equivalent of the letter O. And you add the serifs and you get the odal rune, and that is what the Nazis did back then to brand it better. Okay? So it's all about, you can't have tyranny without branding. So it's a big part of it. Propaganda.
Yeah, it's red hats. Yeah, no, I'm with you.
Big thing, big branding. And so when he saw that, he was familiar with the laws, knew that it was a Nazi symbol. This is a well-known symbol to Nazis, to neo-Nazis, to the Southern Poverty Law Center. Myself, I recognized it instantly because back in the 1980s, I belonged to a gang called Sharp, which was the Skinheads Against Racial Prejudice. And we fought the Hammerskins, who were the Nazis, the white power, white supremacist skinheads. And they would have all this iconography, swastikas tattooed on them. The odal rune was very big, the SS, the sig. They would have all of the stuff, the eagle, the Iron Cross, all this stuff tattooed on them. So I was familiar with it. And people who run in these circles are familiar with it. You can find it on major banners and flags carried by the neo-Nazis at Charlottesville. You can see the odal rune. So this is, although a lot of people might not be able to recognize it instantly, people who are familiar with it and people who know the laws of things that are banned because they're associated with Nazis instantly recognized it. And so I tweeted that out. It caught fire very, very quickly to the point where within a day we had responses from Matt Schlapp, who's the organizer of CPAC, right? Who was like, tinfoil hat, conspiracy theorist. It's a conspiracy. It's a shape, Matt. It's a shape. There's no conspiracy. Triangle is a triangle. You're lying. No, it's the shape. Now, I didn't say that they had purposefully done this. I could guess that they had purposefully done this after seeing that movie that they played at the Ellipse before the insurrection, which was just filled with anti-Semitism and sort of Nazi propaganda. But I just pointed it out. Said, anyone notice they're using a Nazi symbol? They came back and said, we didn't do it on purpose. And I said, okay, but now that you know about it, because the Hyatt didn't put out a statement until Monday after CPAC was over, saying, we see that. That's abhorrent. That's bad. We don't support that. Although we alerted them to the problem on Friday.
Yeah.
So it's just very interesting, very odd. It got picked up by Snopes, who said, yeah, that's the odal rune, but it's not been confirmed that it was intentional.
Right. I mean, that I read the Snopes article, and that was essentially, we do not have direct testimony from the organizers of CPAC that said, we deliberately tried to bury the shape in there. To me, I think what is telling is that the little wing parts, right?
The serifs,
okay, that turn it into the odal rune. Those were just like, it was a lit walkway from stage left and stage right. It would have taken 10 minutes tops to like rearrange the way that walkway looked.
Mm-hmm. And they didn't even go anywhere. They weren't in use, those serifs, and they cost money to build, and no one stood on them. There was no dance number that required chorus lines on the side. So that, and their response, the response, a normal person would go, "Ooh, that's bad.
Yeah.
Let's take that down."
Right.
And I denounce neo-Nazis. But you know why the Republican Party can't do that?
Yeah.
And then, of course, all the tweets came in, "Are you saying all Republicans are Nazis?" I said, "No, but all Nazis are Republicans." Bear with me for a minute on this. And of course I got my opinions about it, but the fact remains it was the shape of the odal rune. No question, it is the shape of that rune. It is a known Nazi symbol, one of only 3 outlawed in Germany, and the other 2 are the swastika and the sig. So kind of important, kind of ranks up there.
I think, the two, because again, that I was skeptical when you first brought it, not skeptical of your motives, but I don't want to believe that of our 2 major political parties, one of them has been co-opted entirely, stem to stern by white supremacists. That's a tough one. The 2 facts that sort of push me over the top are, number one, understanding how outside that it really truly does fall into the like dog whistle category, right? This is a thing that if you're not a white supremacist, you're like, all right, whatever. Random collection of shapes might be that way. And the second point that you just emphasized that I think makes it very, very hard to defend, and that is, I actually had something like this. The very first logo for my law firm, I had done over, it was the equivalent of Fiverr, right? Like I had various graphic artists submit a design, and there was this really cool, like interlocking 2 gavels. It wasn't quite right, but you see, like there was a white space and someone was like, well, if you turn it this way, it kind of looks like a swastika. And I was like, holy crap. And, and what I said was, all right, didn't see that. And then I immediately went in and edited and put in long black lines to make sure that it couldn't make a fucking swastika. Because you know what? Even if it's totally unintentional, you're like, ooh, wow, that's bad. Let me fix that. And the fact that the response was, you're making this up. Are we going to disavow or change this? Crickets. That's a tough one.
Even the band Kiss, for example, when they were about to sell stuff in Germany and go to Germany, there's a story about this that Andrew Hamilton told me about. And they actually, Germany said, your S and S in Kiss look an awful lot like Sig. Now, there are lightning bolt S's, but it was close enough that Kiss was like, holy shit, you're right. Let's change that. And then they made the changes to their logo because they knew that would be a bad thing to do. So CPAC can't get their shit together the way Gene Simmons does, but here we are. And their response was also a little because they're like, we at CPAC love the Jewish people. We at CPAC, the way that they arranged their statement, they completely separated themselves and made it almost seem like we welcome the people who aren't us, the others. And it was very tough to read, hard to swallow. Very bad move, all around a bad look. But we can't expect them to do anything but deny and then turn around and accuse us of doing the same thing. You should address, he said, I believe you should address anti-Semitism within the Democratic Party.
Yeah. Can I do 30 seconds on the fact that the co-optation of right-wing Orthodox Judaism within the evangelical Christian community.
Yeah, let's do a new segment called "Can I Do 30" by Andrew Torres. I'm going to pull out my stopwatch.
It's just get it on the clock. My Jewish friends, you need to understand the reason that evangelical Christians are playing nice to you is because they're trying to fulfill prophecy in their book that will bring about the end of the world. They do not value your religion as your religion. They value your religion as the first step in kicking off prophetic events that will result in all of you being exterminated by Jesus and sent to the lake of fire. So you may want to think twice about whether these people are your friends. Thank you. This has been Andrew for 30.
Good job. You did it. Yeah. So the response has been CPAC. Well, Hyatt said, "Ooh, that's abhorrent," and then CPAC wrote a letter saying, "You're abhorrent, and we don't like you." And
what's abhorrent?
Yeah, and you're trying to cancel us. This far left social media attack, which they're talking about me, because once I put it out there, of course, everybody picked it up, right? Everybody that we know and love,
everybody who's anybody
picked it up, and it just got so huge. And so I'm interested to see where this goes, because now the CPAC and the far right and Republicans are boycotting Hyatt, as well as people on the left, for their statement coming out too little, too late. About, apologizing for the abhorrence of the Nazi symbol on Monday after the stage had already been dismantled and all the checks had been cashed. So here we are. We'll keep on it for you. But I am super proud to have called this out. I would do it again. I've been stomping Nazis since the 80s. I'm not going to stop.
I really wish we didn't have to do this, but I'm glad that there's somebody more cynical and more eagle-eyed than I am out there. This was really a great catch. For me, the takeaway from CPAC is that the complete and utter transformation of the Republican Party into the Trump Party it continues unabated, right?
Yeah, well, we'll see, because only 55% of the Trump carnival voted in the straw poll for him for the next president. This party seems very split to me. Maybe like a 60-40, 70-30, but that's enough to destroy the whole thing.
I sure hope you're right. I mean, to me, I look at a Republican Party that for the first time in history declined to have a presidential platform in 2020. It was just, yay, go Trump, that, had that golden calf Trump brought in. And then Trump's speech, right? No, we're not starting a new party. I own the Republican Party. I'm going to beat him a third time. The entire thesis of CPAC, usually CPAC... they're toxic and stupid and terrible ideas, but they are ideas, right? This was entirely, I'm hard pressed to come up with anything that was not relitigating the election and repeating.
It was a boring speech and it was terrible. And we're no more than 6 years away from a Republican platform that was very strong against Russia invading Crimea, and had very strong language against Russia and on behalf of Ukraine. We're less than 6 years away from that Republican Party, and so everyone was like, how did Hitler get into power so fast? Well, here we are.
We have always been at war with East Asia is strong in the Trump wing of the Republican Party. So,
Yep. Well, that's the long and short of CPAC.
I feel like we could go a lot longer, but I got to wash the taste out of my mouth. So
yeah, I got to go take a Gattaca shower after that discussion.
Outstanding reference.
And as soon as I'm done with that, we'll be right back. We're going to talk about some cool stuff with Merrick Garland and other things going on. And so stick around. We'll be right back. Hey everybody, it's AG for Cleanup on Aisle 45. Do you ever listen to our podcast? You want to scream your opinions or your questions at us, or you just want to fight with Andrew, because I always do? Well, now you can, because we go live on the Stereo app every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern, and you can ask us your questions directly, or sing a song to us, or just make a comment. You can record them, and we'll play them, and then we'll answer them. Join us for the Cleanup on Aisle 45 after party Q&A. We have uncensored opinions, exclusive content, only available on the Stereo app. I love this app. I'm talking on it all the time. You can follow me at Allison Gill and get notified every time I go live. We take a deep dive into a variety of topics and interact directly with you. So download the Stereo app for free and follow us at stereo.com/Allison Gill. There's a link in the description in the show notes. And then join us on the Stereo app. The Stereo app has thousands of live social conversations with a wide range of genres, every interest, including news, comedy, sports, pretty much anything you want to talk about. You choose whether to be a co-host, participate as a guest, or simply listen on exclusive conversations. So join Andrew and me live every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern on the Stereo app. We'll see you there. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. As we record this, Monday night, the Senate Judiciary Committee voted 15-7 to advance President Biden's nomination of what should have been Supreme Court Justice Merrick Garland to the full Senate for confirmation. Garland, the former Chief Judge of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit, also rad dude, rad circuit, love his circuit, has been praised by members of both parties for his intellect and his integrity. He's very good. 15-7 is a good vote, but it should have been bigger than that.
Yeah.
He pledged in his nomination hearing last month to fend off any effort by anyone to politically influence the Justice Department investigations, and that his first priority would be to fully prosecute the heinous crimes committed in the attack at the Capitol on January 6th. And he also said not just the people that were in the building, but everybody up and down. And because of the power sharing agreement that Andrew and I described for you in episode 5, the Senate Judiciary is split 11 Republicans, 11 Democrats. So this vote is all 11 Democrats plus 4 of the Republicans. And the 2, remember last week I said, I know at least Graham and Cornyn are going to vote for this, so nobody fear.
You did. So those 4 were Graham and Cornyn, and also Chuck Grassley of Iowa and Tom Tillis from North Carolina. And Grassley, I understand, right? He's occasionally had some independent thoughts. And Tillis is also not a surprise. Like, that is rapidly bluifying North Carolina. And I think that probably explains Cornyn as well, right? Like, there's somebody sort of looking around and, seeing Beto O'Rourke, be a better statesman for his state than the current junior senator from Texas. Talk to me about Lindsey Graham not being a despicable human being.
Well, that's not entirely true.
Okay.
The old Lindsey fish, right? He feeds off of whoever has the most power at the time. So, who knows? But last month, Graham called Garland a sound choice. But it definitely surprised me at the time. But I don't know who it is that he's glomming onto right now to impress with his vote for Garland, unless it's Garland himself and he wants easygoings when the investigations happen. Because if you remember, Lindsey Graham is always, whenever he questions the FBI, particularly about this FISA stuff, Carter Page, he's always grilling them about his conversations with foreign leaders and if they've been recorded. And if you're a cop, you have to say so, right? And are you going to tell me? And I remember during one hearing, finally after a grilling of about 15 minutes, the guy from the FBI looked at him and said, "Look, Mr. Graham, we got your request last month. We're looking into it." So he's really concerned about what's the DOJ, what the Department of Justice is looking into. So, I can't imagine Merrick Garland's the kind of guy who would go, "Hey, you voted for me, so I'm going to let this one slide." But I honestly don't know who it is he's trying to impress with his vote for Merrick Garland, but I don't think it's just because he thinks it's the right thing to do. That's just my own thought.
Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense.
Now, as for the 7 who voted against Garland, it's a who's who of seditionists. They're mostly your standard villains. Mike Lee of Utah, who thinks democracy is rank and is the enemy of liberty. Josh Hawley of Missouri, the future Goebbels. Tom Cotton of Arkansas. John Kennedy of Louisiana, Ted Cruz of Texas, and Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, whose questions to Merrick Garland were the dumbest questions I've ever heard in my life.
I just want to point out, these are the people that the Republicans put on the Judiciary Committee. Like, look, there is no way that Marsha Blackburn could outscore either you or Thomas on Thomas Takes the Bar exam. Anyway, sorry. So I'm counting up. That's 6.
Oh, yeah. The 7th surprised the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Ben Sasse of Nebraska, someone who's been very critical of Trump, voted to convict during the last impeachment. What is going on with Sassy Pants?
I don't know. So I tried to drill down on this, right? And I could really only find 2 things, right? The first was Sasse was a cheerleader of Mitch McConnell's efforts to deny Merrick Garland a seat on the Supreme Court back in 2016, right? And he put you absolutely saw this at the time and you've blocked it out of your memory, but he gave this unbelievable, face punch worthy press conference in which he's like, well, if Barack Obama would nominate to the Supreme Court someone who would rein in the uncontrolled dictatorial powers of Barack Obama, I would vote to confirm that person. It was gross, right?
Yeah.
So he did all of that grandstanding in 2016. So maybe he just feels like he's on the I'm anti-Merrick Garland train. I don't know. The other thing that comes up is Sasse is a plausible Republican presidential contender in 2024 if things swing against Trump, right? It's pretty much Sasse, Romney, and my governor, Larry Hogan, right? That's the anti-Trump Republican Party right now. And maybe this is a way for him to build up cred with the right wing that's anti-Trump. I don't know. All I know is that last week Sasse was asked about Garland and he replied 3 things. And I looked during the confirmation hearing for this. These seem ridiculous. He said, number 1, he wants to probe Garland's views on the limits of executive powers, right? And that goes back to the 2016 Supreme Court thing, right? Which did now that, Joe Biden is in office, we're back to executive orders are terrible. Second, he wanted to ask how Garland, quote, plans to handle politically sensitive investigations in a way that can build confidence in the department's independence, end of quote. And look, Garland knocked that out of the park during his...
He asked and answered.
Yeah, right.
Totally.
And third, and this is real weird, he wants a commitment, quote, to bringing Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirators to justice, which, by the way, I'm all for. You want to go wiretap Alan Dershowitz? I will, I'll sign an amicus brief for you to get that search warrant.
Yeah, clear sign he's out to get Trump.
Yeah, it was weird. So
those are weird requirements. I do know that a lot of people were upset that he wouldn't commit to not firing Durham. So maybe there's something about that that Sasse didn't like, because as we know, Bill Barr committed to not firing Mueller, or was it? I think it was.
Yeah, he said he
Session.
wouldn't fire Rosenstein. Yeah,
Rosenstein,
yeah.
right? And so I know that Ted Cruz was grilling him looking for an answer to that. And he's like, I'm not going to give you any promises. I'm assuming his work will continue. Basically, he's sitting there like he's found nothing, but sure. So
yeah,
he wouldn't commit to that. That's the only thing I can think of. But I had Ben down as a yes, but I know you did too. It's just very confusing.
Yep. Well, we'll see. I still think that Garland, I think we said 75 plus, maybe I'll calibrate down to 70 plus, but I mean, he's still going to sail through the Senate, I think.
Yeah, I'm still at 70 plus.
Yeah, I think that's right.
That's my guess there. I'm gonna go with 73.
Closest. I'll go $1. No, wait, are we doing Prices Right rules?
$1. One. Yeah. You're like, I'm 74. All right. Here's an interesting story. We got about a couple minutes left in this segment. You're going to love this, Andrew. Do you remember way back in December 2020 when Gohmert, smartest man in Congress, sued Mike Pence to try to force him to certify a non-existent competing slate of completely made-up Trump electors? Remember that?
Oh, yeah. That was delightful.
Yeah, that was the lawsuit that election law experts uniformly described as breathtaking and preposterous, and it lost everywhere, including unanimously lost at the Supreme Court, 9-0. Unanimously, like he couldn't even get fucking Squee and Tubin to vote for his bullshit.
Yeah, when Sam Alito thinks that you've pushed the bar a little too far, like you're in trouble. That was also the lawsuit. This is maybe, look, like there were 65 of these lawsuits and 20 were brought by Sidney Powell. So there was a tremendous amount of stupidity to go around. But this was the first one in which litigants on behalf of the Trump side missed their filing deadline because nobody on Gohmert's team had ever used Microsoft Word before, right? And you might think I'm making that up, but no, they filed an unopposed motion to excuse their late filing because all their docs were in Google Docs. And look, let me just quote directly from the brief because otherwise you're going to think I'm making this up. Quote, plaintiffs' counsel have encountered numerous technical incompatibilities in the software versions between Google Docs and Microsoft Word, resulting in editing difficulties and text problems. End of real quote that these real lawyers submitted to a real judge in a real case. I can't make this up.
I remember back when Manafort converted his business PDFs to Word and then made some changes, falsifying them, and then reconfigured it back to PDFs, and it got all fakakta. And then when they tried to submit some redacted stuff, but they actually only just highlighted it in black so you could actually remove the redactions and see what was underneath. And ever since that moment that we discovered that back in 2018, we had a segment called Republicans Can't Tech. And I think that's sort of where we're at here. And you're going to love this. D.C.-based attorney Patrick Malone has submitted 2 separate bar complaints to the D.C. Court of Appeals Office of Disciplinary Counsel, right? These 2 complaints target 3 members of the D.C. bar, Julia Z. Haller, Lawrence Joseph, and Brandon Johnson. The complaints allege that each of the 3 attorneys, quote, seriously violated the District of Columbia rules of professional conduct and engaged in, quote, unethical behavior in Gohmert's lawsuit. Now, specifically, Malone claims that the Texas Republicans' arguments were frivolous and presented for improper purpose, and that the attorneys themselves engaged in, quote, conduct that seriously interferes with the administration of justice, unquote, by litigating the GOP's concerns therein.
Yeah, look, people ask me this all the time, right? Is Sidney Powell going to get disbarred? Is Lin Wood going to get disbarred? And my answer is always the same. You get disbarred for misusing client funds. There are 2 things that I would just point out here. So number 1, filing a bar complaint, right? There are lots of disciplinary measures that are short of total disbarment, right? Including temporary disbarment, losing your license for a period of time, a formal reprimand, right? Like all of things which I think are appropriate and potentially available here, right? And like when you've been disciplined, you have to disclose that, right? Like that goes on the lawyer equivalent of like, you know, your public record that you always heard about.
This will go down on your permanent record.
Exactly right. And like that, it really does matter. Like it in the long run, right? Are grifters probably going to make it through? Yeah, you know, maybe. But like, we need to keep pushing back against the people who, you know, the ordinary folks who have enabled Trumpism. And all 3 of these lawyers, as far as I can tell, were just lawyers, right? And they got caught up and they decided they were going to take Louis Gohmert's money. And they filed a lawsuit they shouldn't have filed. And the big thing here is that they submitted a document that made it look like the Arizona state legislature had approved their imaginary bullshit made up alternate slate of electors. And they had not. That's a fraudulent document. And you know what? Like the bar grievance, so the DC, the District of Columbia Court of Appeals, that's the state Supreme Court in DC. The Office of Disciplinary Counsel is not going to be super impressed with like, well, technically we didn't. No. Like the bar is lawyers policing lawyers, and the more I talk to fellow lawyers, right? They don't have to be as far left as I am, but we're embarrassed by this shit. Like the Linwoods and Sidney Powells are bringing our profession into disrepute more so than, generally.
And not only that, but it undermines the ability for lawyers to do their jobs properly. It's not just embarrassing and gross and offensive. It's actually detrimental to the system of justice. And I think that we may actually see some disciplinary action from the bar on some of these things, particularly this case, especially with that just blatant submission about the AZ GOP, like you said, and the legislature there, just completely, just a lie, just a flat out lie.
It is, and I sure hope so.
Well, we'll see. But you know what's really, really cool?
Andy McCabe?
Yes. We get to talk to the man right after this break. It's a really, really in-depth interview. He's just so knowledgeable, obviously. He was a former acting director of the FBI, about the intelligence work product, the chain of command, that it goes through, and everything that we kind of need to know about who's responsible for what in national security and how it impacts this sort of frivolous accusation that there was an intelligence failure, although there are some criticisms of the FBI, and we're going to get more information, according to Andrew, when we hear from some of those folks at the FBI. So it's just a really fabulous interview.
Yeah, I love the idea that we're going to be able to talk to somebody boots on the ground in terms of, right now there are a ton of cross fingers being pointed. Nobody wants to take responsibility. And I've got a feeling that Andy can help us kind of get to the bottom of what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And definitely. And you're going to hear it right after this break. Stay with us. Hey everybody, it's AG, and this portion of Cleanup on Aisle 45 is brought to you by the most incredible thing ever, Magic Spoon cereal. It is cereal so delicious, you will not believe it's healthy. I'm excited to share Magic Spoon with you. I've been a cereal person since I was a kid. I used to sit down in front of Saturday morning cartoons and eat like a box of it. But since I've become an adult, I've had to eat healthier, and I've had to give it up because of all the sugar and chemicals and carbs. But not Magic Spoon. It is so delicious, you won't believe it's made without all that stuff. And if you're a cereal lover like me, you've got to give it a try. Forbes magazine says, with cereal it tastes this good and offers so much nutritional value as opposed to, none, Magic Spoon may be the future of breakfast. Magic Spoon cereals amazingly have 0 sugar, 12 grams of protein, and only 3 net grams of carbs. It's keto-friendly, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, low-carb, high-protein, and GMO-free. And the best part is it's super delicious. 4 amazing nostalgic flavors: cocoa, fruity, frosted, and blueberry. Magic Spoon tastes incredible. It's honestly too good to be true. My favorite flavor right now is cocoa because you get that chocolatey milk afterwards. So do this. Go to magicspoon.com/cleanup, grab a variety pack and try it today. And be sure to use our promo code CLEANUP and at checkout to get free shipping. Magic Spoon is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 100% happiness guarantee. So if you don't like it for any reason, they'll refund your money, no questions asked. That's magicspoon.com/cleanup and use the code CLEANUP for free shipping. And we thank Magic Spoon for sponsoring the podcast. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. We are honored today to be joined by former acting director of the FBI and author of the book, The Threat, which you really need to pick up and look through because it's going to give you a lot of information about how the FBI works, and especially in light of the fact that Durham is being held over by Joe Biden in the investigation of the oranges of the Russia investigation, if you will. But today we're going to talk about insurrection security and the intelligence there. So please welcome Andrew McCabe.
Hey, how are you?
That was a long intro. I'm well. I'm good. How have you been? How are things going with you and your family over there?
We are doing well. We're all healthy. We're all a little bit bored and driving each other crazy in the house, but that's all right. We don't have much to complain about, so we're good.
Good. I'm glad to hear it. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is there was a lot of confusion, and I think everyone's still trying to get it straight in their head. The actual intelligence apparatus that went on or should have occurred the day of the insurrection and in the days and the weeks leading up to it. My understanding is that the FBI had intelligence, and then there's an actual intelligence arm at the U.S. Capitol Police, and there's also a Capitol Police board. And I was wondering if you could explain that process of how it's supposed to work?
Sure. So one of the things that makes this so complicated is every agency has their own intelligence collection and analysis infrastructure. In the FBI, the main operational side of the terrorism effort in the FBI in the 56 field offices are what we call the Joint Terrorism Task Forces, the JTTF. And each JTTF is comprised of agents from that field office and also state and local law enforcement officers who are detailed to the FBI to work on the JTTF. So it creates an environment of cooperative work. We get to use each other's legal authorities to get the job done. And we also get to share information very openly. Also in the FBI field office, you have something called a field intelligence group. So all of the intel that gets collected across all of the operational work in the field office gets analyzed and reviewed by the analysts in the field intelligence group, and they produce intelligence reports. So what I would expect happened in our Norfolk field office is some sort of intelligence collection platform that they have up, collected some very alarming chatter on the internet between like-minded domestic extremists talking about attacking the Capitol. And I'm sure you've seen the report. They say things like they're ready to wage war on the Capitol and that sort of thing. So in that situation, the field intelligence group from Norfolk would have written up a report. They would have sent that report to the Washington field office, which had the lead for security preparation around that event. And the Washington field office, we know because of the public statements they've made about this, basically handed that report off to the Capitol Police officers who were present as members of the JTTF. So in the FBI's side of the road, they, I guess, considered their responsibility with respect to that information was done. It was provided to the JTTF, and the Capitol Police officers had access to it. We now also know from the testimony of former Chief Sund that information did make its way from the JTTF over to the intelligence arm of the Capitol Police. They have their own intelligence shop over there. And that report was apparently not passed beyond the level of a sergeant within the Capitol Police before January 6th. So Chief Sund himself had not seen that report and was only aware of it a few days before his recent testimony. So there's some legitimate questions about how the Capitol Police handled that information when they got it.
So just drilling down on Sund's testimony a little bit, I thought his statement seemed very carefully crafted to me, right? The criticism was that they had received no intelligence from the FBI indicating that a planned takeover of the Capitol was in the works, right? And that seems awfully specific with respect to it. So I guess two questions, right? Number one, that is that type of conclusion the type of information that would have been included in that sort of report, or would it have been more in the vein, right? Would you have reached that kind of a strong conclusion, or would it have been much more sort of operative intelligence anyway?
Yeah, kind of like the difference between raw intelligence and they seem to want something. I think Andy, you referred to it as prescriptive intelligence.
Right. Yeah, first of all, he was being very careful, as were all the witnesses. And having been a witness myself many times, I don't blame them.
I did, yeah, not throwing any shade.
It's not a place where recklessness does you good. But everybody's being very precise about the words that they are highlighting from the intelligence reports. And it's important to know that there are two different intelligence reports that are very relevant to this. So the Capitol Police produced their own intelligence assessment, which apparently ran about 12 or 15 pages or something. And they presented that on January 3rd. So that thing was already done and presented to Capitol Police leadership and to the police board before the FBI Norfolk report came down the line. The FBI Norfolk report was really like the day or so before the 6th, and it was really kind of a last-minute thing. With respect to the FBI report, Honestly, I would have expected the FBI to make more of a positive personal contact with a late breaking report like that on the eve of the event. It certainly was concerning. I understand that they were not able to attribute it to any specific individuals, so it may not have reached that level of specificity and credibility that we like to see with intelligence. But nevertheless, it was pretty darn frightening. And it's like the night before the event, you pick up the phone, you call the chief and say, hey, just want to make sure you saw this. Doesn't seem like that happened here. But the longer Capitol Police intelligence report seems to be the thing that most of the witnesses were referring to. And of course, I haven't seen that in its entirety, but from the way they referenced it, it seems like there was some very conflicting language in there. There were some things that seemed quite alarming and indicated that the Capitol itself would be a focus of the violent activity. And then there was other conclusions or analysis that said that they thought that the possibility of violence was remote or not likely. So witnesses were really able to point to those words that supported the actions they took. I think that's a lot of what you saw in the testimony.
But there were some actions they took that would indicate that they had serious concern. I know that Yogananda Pittman testified that Sund had requested to make an emergency, that had requested from the U.S. Capitol Police Board to make an emergency declaration. And they declined to do that because apparently you also needed that request to come from Irving and Stenger. And they did not make that request. As we know, it's been testified to that Irving has said he didn't like the optics of having the National Guard on the mall, which is the same odd language that came out of Lieutenant General Pyatt's mouth over at the Army. I'm like, that's a really interesting, seemingly scripted kind of a line. But I'm speculating there. But to come to the board on January 4th and request an emergency declaration would indicate that they thought he ahead of time that he had the intelligence that it was going to be dangerous.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it seems like they had that meeting and that conversation. The board, of course, would have been Chief Sund, Senate Sergeant of Arms, the House Sergeant of Arms. So that's Stenger and I can't remember the
Irving.
other. Irving. And also the architect of the Capitol, who deftly has seemed to avoid this whole thing. We haven't seen or heard from him yet. But so Sund, made a request for augmenting their security preparation with National Guard forces, and the board turned him down. And it seemed from Stenger's testimony that he based his conclusion that they didn't need that on the intelligence report and the language in the intelligence report that was, again, pointing them more to the more disarming language that was in there. So yeah, there were opportunities to augment what they had, and there were decisions made not to do that. And I think that's unavoidable.
Well, and let me ask, we have received, obviously, none of us have received the entirety of that 12-page report. There has been a leak of what looks like about a half a page to the Washington Post. And as I read that, it seemed to be pretty conclusive, right? So I'm going to give you a couple sentences from that. I know you've seen it, but just so our listeners can follow along. As outlined above, there has been a worrisome call for protesters to come to these events armed, and there is the possibility that protesters may be inclined to become violent. Then there's some more description about the Stop the Steal group, and then it ends with, this combined with Stop the Steal's propensity to attract white supremacists, militia members, and others who actively promote violence may lead to a significantly dangerous situation for law enforcement and the general public alike. And so I guess I juxtapose that with Sund's statements. Is it when you have language that is that concrete, even if there are sort of other areas of the report?
I mean, unless the next page that we're missing says, just kidding, we were kidding,
Yeah, right. I mean, I guess I'm asking, would you expect more specificity than that? I mean, that seems to sound the alarm pretty loudly.
It really does. It's really alarming language to have in an intelligence report. And it's hard to understand why the report apparently, and again, I haven't seen the whole thing, but apparently concludes with language that says that they assess the potential of violence to be remote or improbable or something like that, which I don't know how you reconcile that with the earlier language that you just quoted. But, if you don't have a clear, a lot of intelligence products are not, I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this. Intelligence products don't tell leaders what decisions to make. They just present the information that we have, the raw intelligence we've collected, and they should also present some sort of logical, supported, assessment or conclusion that is supported by the intelligence we have. And when the conclusion is kind of all over the map, as this one seems like it might have been, it makes the intelligence obviously much less helpful.
Yeah, I think it's just striking when you juxtapose it to the National Guard response last summer, for example.
Right.
This isn't their first. It's not like they can say, we haven't seen anything like this before. We've never had to prepare for anything like this before. This is not their first rodeo.
That's the real head scratching part of this, me. And there's many, many questions that we need to resolve here. And we're not going to get these answers to these questions from a jumble of Senate and House hearings. But this community, this law enforcement community in Washington, D.C. is not like any place else in the country. You have all these powerhouse agencies working in the same 5-mile area, and they actually work together incredibly well. When I was running the Washington field office, I used to have the chiefs of every agency in my office once a month for the purpose of sharing intelligence and level setting how we thought about the threats. They also have more experience working with national special security events, or NSSEs, than any other place in the country by far. And we typically, the Secretary of Homeland Security is the official who designates an event an NSSE. And they do that based on a threat assessment. You do a threat assessment, and there's a rating system. And if it rates high enough on the system, the secretary can designate it. Once it's designated, that puts into place this very well-practiced, experienced collaboration across all the agencies, and it floods resources and personnel to areas like the Capitol. For instance, that is the way they protect the Capitol every time there's a joint session of Congress for the President's State of the Union. Now, the joint session of Congress to certify the electoral results seems like it would have fit right into that same bucket. So I'm really curious as to why no one thought to designate the event and then bring in all the coordination and the law enforcement partnership that keeps the Capitol safe for, each time one of these things happens. It's really curious to me.
That makes a lot of sense. I have to drill down. You just said you don't think we're going to get the answers from the current hearing before Homeland Security. How do we get those answers?
You need a authoritative, professional investigation. We desperately need a bipartisan commission, or as bipartisan as we can get, to come in here and spend the time that it takes to do this. It might take a year, it might take more. They need access to every agency. They need to have the clearances and the access to review all the intelligence that the agencies had. They should question what judgments were made based on that intelligence, what biases or perspectives may have influenced those judgments, and what steps were then taken based upon the threat as we knew it before January 6th. To me, this is a watershed moment that should recharacterize how the government thinks about the threat from domestic violent extremists. And we're not going to be able to get to a legitimate understanding of how we might need to change the way we're doing this business until we have a legitimate investigation. You think about the questioning, the kind of chaotic questioning of those witnesses in the Senate and House hearings. The questioning needs to be done under oath, sitting at a table with the benefit of documents and intelligence to review, communications, emails between people. You can sit there and ask the chief, who did you call? And you have his phone records. You know exactly who he called. I mean, and I'm just using the chief as an example here, that's how you get to the truth about what really happened in the lead up to these events.
Well, yeah, because now we have Sund saying, I called it 109, and Pittman saying, yeah, and we called it 12:58, and Irving saying, I didn't hear from anybody until 1:28, and you didn't even request anything. And then Pittman comes back the next day to a totally different committee in a totally different branch, or totally in the House instead of the Senate, and says, I have the phone records here. And I'm like, well, okay, now we got to go back to the Senate, call Irving back in and present him with these phone records. It's just so disjointed. And I'm wondering if you think that the testimony of, I know Jill Sanborn, counterterrorism FBI, is going to be testifying next week. I wonder if you think her testimony, what we could expect from that, or how that would go.
Well, I have great respect for Jill. I worked with her extensively when I was in the Bureau. She is a true counterterrorism expert. And I expect she'll come in and testify, openly and fully, and we will certainly understand the best knowledge that she has of these events. But, a lot has been said about the 9/11 Commission and the 9/11 Commission report in the context of how we should think about this. I'm actually teaching a class right now at George Mason University on national security law and policy. We just conveniently 2 weeks ago did our week on 9/11 and the Commission report. And so I had everybody read a couple of chapters of the report, which I have read many times myself. And the first chapter of the Commission report is it's truly a work of art. They go through very dispassionately and clearly the events that led up to each one of the airplane hijackings. And then they talk about how the different agencies responded in trying to, get fighter jets in the air and that sort of thing. And they absolutely expose fallacies in prior testimony. It's all based on the facts that they've been able to glean from records and communications and phone logs. And that is what we need here. We need a unassailable, factual record of what took place.
Yeah, I agree. And I know that they're hammering out that legislation right now for the Insurrection Commission. And it looks like it'll be a pretty even split now. I know they wanted more Democrats on it than Republicans, but they got some pushback there. But that was a first draft, and so we'll see how that goes. We'll keep watching the testimony. I really appreciate you taking the time to explain all this to us today. I think it's become a little bit clearer now what we're looking at. So I thank you so much, Andy.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
Now, everybody, please check out The Threat. You're going to want to have that in your pocket when we come up. We start talking about what's going on with Durham when nothing comes out.
Can I come back for that one?
Yeah, I was good because I was going to invite you back. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I have a feeling I'll have a few things to say about that when it comes out.
Some thoughts.
Yep.
All right. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, guys. It's been great. Have a great day.
Hey, everybody. AG for Cleanup on Aisle 45. Can you believe it's March already? It was just March. Well, it's time for spring cleaning anyway and getting the house in order, and you can get a head start by revisiting your home and auto insurance with Policygenius. Policygenius can help kill two birds with one stone. You can compare home and auto insurance rates and save up to $1,055 per year by re-shopping. That is money you can put towards things you really care about. For me, that's getting ready to go back out into the world once all these vaccines happen. Traveling, I love to do that. Anyway, it's a really great way to save money, and here's how it works. Head to policygenius.com, answer a few quick questions about yourself and your property, then Policygenius will take it from there. They compare rates of over 30 top insurers from Progressive to Nationwide, and they find the lowest rates for you. The Policygenius team will look at new ways to maximize your savings, including bundling your home and auto policies. That always helps save some money. If Policygenius finds a better rate than what you're paying now, they'll switch you over for free. It is no wonder that with the level of service, Policygenius has earned a 5-star rating across 1,600 reviews on Trustpilot and Google. If you're worried that March is right around the corner and you've barely gotten anything done, it's already here. Take a deep breath. But it'll go fast this time, I swear. And Policygenius will help you make the most of the short month. In minutes. Just reshop your home and auto policy. And you could save $1,055. So head to policygenius.com to get started right now. Policygenius. When it comes to insurance, it's nice to get it right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Time for your favorite segment. Goodbye to you. But first, we want to give a shout out to our Hall of Fame patrons. Am I correct right there?
Yep,
right?
absolutely.
Andrew? We want to give a shout out here to Patty B. Thank you. And Jay Baker. Jessica Odebeer, who's also a wonderful patron over on the Daily Beans, and I know at OA as well. Jamil Shohan.
I think so.
I hope I'm pronouncing that right, or Chohan, and Charles Jones. So thank you all very much for your support. If you want to be a patron, there's all sorts of cool prizes and neat things and ad-free episodes. And we're going to start, we're doing a Zoom call with our patrons, a little hangout happy hour. We give you access to our stereo shows after we've recorded them. So it's just it's a really great community. I love it there. The community that we've built is so amazing. It's just such a great place to network, and we're all just like-minded individuals, and I get so much support. Like Andrew, the thing that keeps me going, honestly, is this incredible community of just engaged, intelligent, compassionate people. Truly, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, I love our listeners. I love our patrons. I love all of our listeners. We got a couple more at the top that I want to give special shout outs to.
Please.
To Chris Simpson, to January 20th, baby. I love that name. Greg Crimer and Rufflebutt Sarah. So
it's because January 20th is my birthday.
That's
right?
why.
That was the important thing that happened on January 20th.
Maybe something else happened. We launched on January 20th. So, that's...
We most certainly did.
It's 2 birthdays in one now. So, but...
Ooh, we'll never forget our anniversary.
I have to tell you that the most fun thing that we've done that really kind of blew me away from the Patreon community is we had our monthly Q&A. We did a little differently than we do it on Opening Arguments. You and I got on Zoom, and we had, 60 or 70 people on the Zoom call with us. We did an hour of answering your questions as voted on by the patrons. And then you turned it over to somebody and they stayed on the call for hours. And I love that when, the fact that we've put these people in a room, particularly now when, there aren't a lot of cocktail parties and rooms to put people in.
Yeah.
But I love that.
Yeah, it's like our little virtual pub.
Yep.
And then we answer questions.
Yeah,
and it's
awesome.
Absolutely fun. I think it's so great. For $1 a show, I think it's totally worth it.
Yeah, that's gonna be my pitch. Head on over patreon.com/aisle45pod. You know how to spell it. Sign on up, give us $1. You get all the great stuff, and you keep at it. We'll read your name.
Yeah. Now, should we say goodbye to people?
I can't wait.
Because first up, newly appointed Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin is considering undoing his predecessor, Acting Defense Secretary Chris Miller's last-minute decision to elevate the top civilian Pentagon official overseeing special operations matters, Joe Tannen, signaling his intent to continue rolling back policies of the Trump administration. Now, Tannen lost his pay raise and will likely now be, quote-unquote, buried in the Navy. Austin is weighing a move as he resigns the senior official who most recently held that special operations post. And Austin is looking at replacing Miller's executive secretary, Navy Captain David Soldow, with a civilian, even though Soldow was not scheduled to rotate out until this summer.
Oh, bye-bye. And you're going to love this one, AG. That same Politico article notes that longtime Mueller She Wrote favorite, Kash Patel, Miller's chief of staff, has also been terminated. I as soon as I saw that, I texted you. And I have not seen that confirmed anywhere else. But, Politico, usually pretty reliable source. On top of getting rid of Kash Patel, hopefully, it notes that Austin has halted the in-processing of a whole bunch of new Trumpies that were added onto these defense panels, including Corey Lewandowski.
Oh, what a swell fella. He was so cordial and easy to speak to during those hearings, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Just a real friendly, cooperative type.
Couldn't have happened to a nicer asshole. And also Trump's 2016 deputy campaign manager, David Bossie.
Yeah, David Bossie, who took over the Trump campaign because Brad Parscale got tackled and arrested with a beer in his hand in Florida by the cops.
You can't make this up. So yeah, they were still completing their paperwork and undergoing security checks, which there's no way they could pass those security checks. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah, no, and I was positing that the number one way to get these folks for being prevented being seated is to just use their security background checks. They're not going to pass them, and there's no longer a Trump in the White House who will ignore the not passing of background checks by the FBI.
Yep.
So, guess what, y'all? Buh-bye. And no segment would be complete without the mentioning of John Durham.
Yep.
He will continue his role as special investigator of nothing, but he is out as U.S. Attorney for Connecticut.
Oh, yeah. And speaking of outgoing U.S. attorneys, Stephen McAllister is also gone. He was a Clarence Thomas clerk, according to his profile at the Federalist Society.
And was that the Kansas guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, bye-bye. And today, I believe, was the deadline. You know, Biden came in a couple weeks ago on a Tuesday and said, y'all got to get out or you're fired.
Yep.
I believe that deadline was today. So next week, we should have a plethora of firings. And yes, Hefe, I know what a plethora is. We have a plethora of piñatas.
We can never have too many piñatas as long as they're ex-Trumpers. So
no,
goodbye to you.
But bye-bye to them. Just such a fun, refreshing segment. The literal cleanup stuff going on. It's nice to see. Now, here's something cool. Last minute. Can I give you a little last minute?
Yeah.
Full-on cleanup mode at CPAC. Matt Schlapp has just tweeted, just leaving the Hyatt in Orlando. The valet thanked me for bringing CPAC to this hotel. He said it was the first time the hotel felt back to normal. He also said the patriotism was amazing. The New York City comms consultants for Hyatt should talk to their employees. Quote, hashtag America Uncanceled. So full cleanup mode now.
Yeah. I can't wait for the congressional investigations on cancel culture following CPAC's 3-day parade of it's canceling when you disinvite speakers, but not when we do it.
Right. Yeah, because the Pharaoh guy was not allowed to go for his anti-Semitic remarks. Interesting. So you can have the Odal Rune stage, but you can't say the stuff out loud. Come on.
And if I could give a plug for our friends over at the Skeptocrat who talk about the fact that the GOP literally platformed the leader of Japan's happy science cult on the stage. If you are dying to know what lunacy they believe, and it will shock you in a way that maybe only the Odal Rune can top, go check out our friends over at the Skeptocrat this week.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Also, check out Opening Arguments. Come see the Daily Beans. Yeah. We had a really interesting interview that came out Monday with Andrew Hamilton, the first person to point out the Odal Rune on the stage, and what a great catch, I just have to say, and it was a great interview. So you'll learn a lot. I learned a lot.
You're doing great work, AG.
Thank you. Stomping Nazis since 1988. It's my deal.
Love it.
My grandpa did it. I can do it too.
All right.
All right, everybody. I don't have anything else to add, but this has been a wonderful episode. Thanks again to Andrew McCabe for taking the time to talk to us about security and the intelligence apparatus, because we're going to be learning a lot more about that once Merrick Garland is confirmed, probably by this Friday.
Yeah, I think that's right. He's dreamy.
Yeah, McBabe, we called him. He was Mr. February in our sexy justice calendar.
Which month was I again? I forgot.
I didn't know you yet.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, 2022 version. There we go.
Oh, okay. I'm writing it down right now.
All right.
Licking my pen, making a note. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. We will see you next week for Cleanup on Aisle 45.
Bye-bye.
Cleanup on Aisle 45 is written and produced by Allison Gill and Andrew Torres and is engineered and edited by Mackenzie Mazzell and Starburns Audio. Fact-checking and research by Allison Gill and Andrew Torres with quality assurance and media by Muller, She Wrote, LLC. Branding, design, and logo by Starburns Audio and Joel Reeder with Moxie Design Studios. And our copy is written by Jesse Egan. Our music is written and recorded by Adam Orr and Christopher Hoffey, and our opening sequence was designed by Allison Gill and mixed by Mackenzie Mazzell and Starburns Audio. Follow us on Twitter at Aisle45Pod and listen wherever you get your podcasts. Don't miss our Cleanup on Aisle 45 after party over on the Stereo app. We'll be going live every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern, and we want to hear from you. Our last Stereo show went a little bit like this.
Does any other state have that as an option? Thanks.
I don't know which individual states. I know some states have recall for governor. We can do that here in California. We did it in Arizona when we recalled Evan Meekum back in the day. Wisconsin has a recall, but I honestly don't know which individual states. I do know that that Ted cannot be recalled. He cannot be removed. The only way to get Ted out of office is to vote him out of office, for him to resign, for him to become incapacitated, or for 2/3 of the Senate to vote to expel him.
That's exactly right. I got nothing to add to that.
I covered it all. All right.
So good.
And I did it in 14 seconds. Look at me. Okay.
All right. Now look.
Stereo is the app for live social conversations, and we want to talk directly with you, our listeners. You can join our show, ask questions about news, politics, the law, anything. Share your experiences, sing us a song, whatever. We want to hear everything. So download now and join us live this week. Link to our show in the description, and join us on the Stereo app.
Season 4 of How We Win is here.
For the past 4 years, we've been making history in critical elections all over the country. And last year, we made history again by expanding our majority in the Senate, beating election-denying Republicans in crucial state house races, and fighting back a non-existent red wave.
But the MAGA Republicans who plotted and pardoned the attempted overthrow of our government now control the House, thanks to gerrymandered maps and repressive anti-voter laws. And the chaotic spectacle we've already seen shows us just how far they will go to seize power, dismantle our government, and take away our freedoms.
So, the official podcast of The Persistence is back with Season 4. There's so much more important work ahead of us to fight for equity, justice, and our very democracy itself. We'll take you behind the lines and inside the rooms where it happens with strategy and inspiration from progressive changemakers all over the country.
And we'll dig deep into the weekly news that matters most and what you can do about it with messaging and communications expert, co-founder of Way to Win, and our new co-host, Jennifer Fernandez-Ancona.
So join Steve and I every Wednesday for your weekly dose of inspiration, action, and hope.
I'm Steve Pearson.
And I'm Jennifer Fernandez-Ancona.
And this is How We Win.